task report. It seems to always come up no matter what the discussion is, whether we're talking about choices or whether we're talking about West Salisbury or any topic. It always seems to come up, and I just thought we'd touch base on where we were with this.
Well, gladly. Right now, we're looking at a small group type of process and try to answer the questions that came up in the preceding activities. We had our first meeting of that at Del Mar last week, and we had a group of about a dozen, 14 people. Had a very productive conversation talking about different aspects, and basically we're squaring away the different questions that we had and data gathering points that we needed to make. We have another meeting coming up with them, I think, in about 3 weeks. President Willie and I and Mr. Holloway were there, and then a group of, like I said, maybe 9 or 10 people from the Del Mar area. We're looking to do that across the system in terms of areas where we need to make adjustments. We're going forward with some of the activities that we talked about in regards to redistricting in terms of the holding the boundaries stable right now for Bennett Middle School, and at least for a year or two until we do any kind of further redistricting that occurs. We're looking at splitting the ESOLs, the kids in the ESOL student program, the children who don't speak English at home, and the like, and making a change in terms of the time frame for Bennett Middle School. And there's a fourth thing that all of a sudden slipped right out of my head. Chipman. Second grade from Chipman over to Glen Avenue a year early. Usually we'd move them in third grade, and now we're going to move my second grade. And we've had meetings with families in that at Bennett Middle School and at Chipman and like, and things seem to be going very well with that.
John, so it's clear, the meeting we had at Del Mar was a Del Mar meeting,
right,
which we were invited to attend, and their concern is that we have looked at all the things that might impact the present enrollment at Del Mar School. And they were most appreciative that we stopped the process this year because we felt it was moving too fast, and there were so many things that were a part of it that we needed more input and more time to look into it. They expressed their appreciation that that was done. Their major concern at the meeting was that there may be a number of students at the Del Mar Elementary School that are not legitimately there in terms of that they live outside of the Del Mar district and have given improper addresses and whatever that have allowed them to be enrolled. That's being looked at, I think, with a fine-tooth comb. John, correct me if I'm wrong right now, but that's my understanding. And also looking at some of the numbers they shared that did not agree with ours. But it was a very, and Matt was there, and he can correct me if I say this wrong, but it was a very open discussion, people free to share, everyone, I think, engaged, and I left saying this is the kind of input that we need to make good decisions. One of the points made is that whatever changes we do, students that are already there should probably be grandfathered in so that we pull no student out that's already in the school. And I think that indeed is a fair suggestion, one which I hope we will look at. But it was a productive meeting. We still have a lot of questions unanswered, and the data piece being one of the major ones, Matt, wouldn't you say? But that is an area that we continue to pursue because we must do something. We have such an imbalance right now within our schools that we need to balance enrollment.
Yeah, I was just going to share that we're planning on meeting monthly for the foreseeable future, and our next meeting, we're going to try to, if we don't have time for the next meeting, it'll be the one after, make sure that all the data that we are sharing is the same. Because some of them had some different numbers, different figures on capacities of the school, and also exactly how many students deserve to be there. Yeah. So we're going to make sure we're all on the same page before we start discussing any kind of plan for, advising what should happen.
I've seen these numbers in your books. What are the numbers off the top of your head of what they call them, special exceptions, or where they get to go to other schools?
Special permissions.
Permission, that's correct. Yes. Okay.
I don't recall if you recall.
I've seen the numbers. It's quite a few, but
there's a few there, but there aren't as many as
I'm not just talking about that school. I'm talking about county.
Oh, in general.
Yeah.
Oh, generally, gee whiz, that's. I mean, that's, we got 25 different schools, so a significantly larger number, but I don't know that off the cuff. Sorry.
Mark?
Oh, were you
I'm done.
Okay, so, again, I'm kind of new at all this, so I'm trying to figure my way out. So correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that a lot of this stuff hinges on redistricting. A lot of the stuff on our list in terms of West Salisbury, central office relocation, that, with West Salisbury, the plan was to move some other, to expand the number of students in that school, which kind of hinges on redistricting. The central office relocation, if you wanted to repurpose, one of the junior highs, one of the middle schools, hinges on redistricting. I mean, so, in terms of us doing budgets, in terms of the executive's office doing the CIP, it seems that if you can get redistricting right, then this stuff falls into place better. And, I understand there were some hiccups with this, a few months ago with it. So, I mean, is that a correct impression? Okay, all right, so.
Well, if I could just respond, because I want you to separate the West Salisbury issue to a degree.
Okay.
There were always plans to do something with West Salisbury before redistricting committee ever formed. What's happened with West Salisbury is the recommendation was that it go beyond its present size to a 650 size school. And that's where the redistricting plan comes in, because then Chipman would join together with the West Salisbury students to have one school, which frees up Chipman then to become an early learning center, which we desperately need, and would allow that school to serve that purpose. And in the long run, we believe save money. So West Salisbury was not tied into the redistricting plan in terms of doing something with the school.
But the size,
size was the issue, that we make it larger so we could free up Chipman. I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that, so
yeah.
you didn't think that was.
Yeah. But in terms of if we're, again, build it for 300 some students or 600, that's an important question that's,
Yes.
that we're all, I mean, it's all, everything's tied together. so,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And again, the reason being, that frees up Chipman to
Yeah.
become an early learning center.
So,
John, I'm sorry. if I
No,
interrupted
that's
you.
exactly what my answer would have been.
so how many people would leave Delmar to go to West Salisbury if it was built as a 650 capacity school?
At this time, we haven't considered any, major adjustment like that. The two areas that, I think I've got right, I don't have the map in front of me. When we made that first proposal to make some adjustments on the Delmar attendance area, some of those kids would have gone to North Salisbury. I don't know if any of them would have gone to West Salisbury or not. Do you recall, Kathy? Dr. Thompson?
I think it was Willards.
Willards and North Salisbury would be the involved area. Now, there was a discussion point a while back, should we make West Salisbury further north so that we could capture some students from Delmar? We've done some preliminary looking at that. We looked at a preliminary look at a site, but we haven't, done a complete workup. That would take a considerable amount of time, because then you have to look at sewer hookups, and there's just a lot of other stuff that goes into it.
Our recommendation was that West Salisbury stay where it is, not to move down the road, because in its present location, number one, the community is very supportive of that, and we have the hookups that we need in that location. Now, again, as John pointed out, something else has been brought to the table, so we obviously aren't going to close our eyes. We're going to look at it, but that was the original recommendation, was that it be on the site that it is right now.
You said in Delmar that the kids that are already there, that you would grandfather them in?
That would be our recommendation, I believe, that no one be pulled out of the school if they were presently attending it.
So if the school is overcrowded now, or can be overcrowded, and I look at it, and most of the overcrowding is coming from Delaware, those students that are coming in that are outside the district. So if we got kids that are in Wicomico that should be going to that school, wouldn't that be still hindering the school will still be overcrowded because of those kids that your grandfather in that are outside the district?
It would not be an instant fix, Ernie, if that's what you're saying. It would be a period of time when their years were up. But as far as those that are there not legitimately, that will be an instant fix if we can identify who they are.
That's what I was talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
We
That's what I
get
thought.
regular reports, actually, I don't know how regular, maybe every, month or every couple of weeks, or maybe 6 weeks, that so-and-so or so-and-so is not, legally in the Del Mar attendance area. And we get that for the whole system. But Del Mar is one of our primary spots to get that. And we check them, and believe me, we have the saying I've used before, and nobody's ever corrected me on it. We have more divorce decrees in our files when we check all this paperwork than a lot of attorneys have. Because when things happen, and there's a question on that address, we go right to the divorce decree, and in general, we'll take care and check every detail the kid is legally attending there. But if we hear about somebody saying blah, 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 this red car that stops at such and such an address, because a lot of people stop and drop their kids off a couple blocks from school because they don't want to have the deal. We're on to school in the morning, it's kind of a traffic jam. I feel bad about that, but there's not much I can do about it, generally speaking. And when you got 900 students in a building, it's gonna be a traffic jam, so people try to avoid that. We check them. And so if you know somebody that thinks somebody's not legitimately there, give us a call at 410-677-5251, and we'll triage it and we'll check it out. Because we want to serve the kids we're legally required to serve. We don't get money for those other kids.
Where does all this come into play? Is the redistricting what you are planning to, the new improved redistricting and facilities task report, is that what's next on the agenda? Or do you need to get your capital plans in order first? Did the change in the West Salisbury issue and some others also throw a wrench into your facilities task report? Or will you be moving forward with that independently?
We have got to do the capital improvement planning program on a consistent basis, so we have to continue on that.
Mm-hmm.
The redistricting or adjustments of boundaries, that we're gonna do on a slower pace so that we can make sure that we get all the stuff right. We've got our small committee started at Del Mar, we're gonna work in some other areas, and I anticipate that they will study it, and they may come up with the same idea we had originally, and may come up with a new one. But that can go slower. That one is an irritation. I mean, it's an irritation to deal with a building that's 5, 10, 20% overcrowded. But when you've got a building that you're saying, this or that is the plumbing or the track or whatever the situation is, that has to be done now because we know we're gonna really pay if we don't fix it now. If you don't do $1 million repair now, you're gonna pay $5 or $6 million down the pike. So the capital thing has to go first. The West Salisbury question is a challenge because we see the best option is to build a new building on the site, 650 student capacity. Now, if we have to make some adjustments on that, we'll have to deal with it. That's just how life is. I mean, we have to live within our means. I hope I answered your question.
I just want to add to that, and I'm going to borrow somebody else's phrase because it was a good one. We can't walk on jello. We need to have some firm foundation. So when things are up in the air with our capital improvement plan, when funding is up in the air and we don't know which way to go because we don't know what's going to be approved and what's not, it's really hard to have that firm foundation. We need to put down the block so that we're not walking on jello and we can make some really good, sound decisions and get that foundation, moving forward.
Where do you see we're going with this $2 million on West Salisbury?
I see us going towards sitting down, having a conversation, analyzing what is the best option, re-reviewing the plan. I see the $2 million as part of it at 1.25 to do, the beginning architectural work. But I think we need the commitment from the county council and the county executive to say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. That may require some extra time, I don't know. But I don't want to spend much extra time. If it's going to take and push it back a couple of years.
Is that A&E on renovation or replacement?
Replacement. My recommendation at this time is replacement.
John, my understanding of that $2.2 million, and maybe my understanding is absolutely incorrect, but I thought it was based on us saving our place in line at the state for this project to move forward. Because as I pointed out in this council room some months ago, Once you step out of line, there are counties waiting in line to take your place. And there's no guarantee if you say, well, we'll step out for a year, that you move in the next year in the place you vacated.
And I didn't know whether that place was 2 million for A&E for renovation or A&E for replacement. I do not know
Well, it was
which
originally
direction
for
that's
the
headed.
planning process, and the planning was supposed to be for a new school. So now if we change that, I don't know how that impacts what happens in Annapolis in terms of what we had originally asked the money for, and that was to start the architectural planning for the new school. And John could maybe speak to that, or someone else better than I, but that was the understanding we had, was what that 2.2 million was to save the AIC money.
Wayne,
IAC.
that's correct? So it's to continue on with the process of replacement?
It's to keep their place in line, and the executive is meeting with the board in terms of what next steps are.
Okay.
So,
And let's be clear that the original ask, what was in the bond, was $1.25 million. That was the amount that was needed to go forward with these studies. The $2.2 million was what came out of the county executive's office when there was talk about doing a replacement of windows and air conditioning. That was not the funds that the Board of Ed had requested. So we learned at the county council meeting that then those funds were not going to be used for windows and air conditioning, but that it could be used for a possible replacement study.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked, because it seems like it's in limbo.
It feels that way.
So what is the time frame? I guess maybe this is a question for Wayne and for you. What is the time frame for us figuring out what's gonna happen with West Salisbury? You know, we need to know by the next CIP cycle, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Are we gonna know before then? Have you two worked together to figure out a time frame, figuring this out?
Again, the executive and his staff are working with John and his staff.
Okay. All right, because I think everyone, it's gonna be renovation, we need to know, I'd like to know if it's gonna be replacement, but I understand what you're saying about that we need a firm pavement. Sometimes, we have to buy different paving stones than what we want, but knowing that we're gonna have some sort of pavement down there is, I think, the key. So I agree with you. I think all of us have questions about what's gonna happen there.
You also had, we appreciate you sending some information here as far as what your issues were. The 2016 budget, of course, is always an issue. And you've seen everything as it's been, I believe you've had a chance to review, I would guess, what was delivered to the council. Have you had a copy yet of the budget or anything?
I have not.
I have not seen
All
it,
right,
John.
I'm sure they'll be getting it over to you as soon as possible. What did we say, that it was maintenance of effort, or was it above maintenance of effort?
Maintenance of effort.
It's maintenance of effort is what has been proposed, and I can't tell you much more about it because we've only just recently
If it's only
seen it as well.
maintenance of effort, and I say only because our costs increase, and if you just go with maintenance of effort, we've had pleas for reading intervention teachers from schools that met with us as being a critical need this coming year. I don't know how we address that if we're talking about maintenance of effort, because all maintenance of effort does is let you do business as usual, and even stresses you to do that when costs of operation increase from year to year for us just as well as it does for your offices. So there's no way we can address the needs being brought before us in terms of the ESOL program and reading intervention teachers if we're saying we're not going to give you a penny more, Board of Education, than the law requires us to give you. And how do we say that education is truly a priority in Wicomico County if we operate under that premise, that we're just going to give you guys up to the penny that we're required to give you and nothing more, when the needs are so clear and evident? And I know my frustration is coming through, and forgive me for that, but it is frustrating when we deal with those needs almost on a weekly basis at our meetings, And these are not needs of replacing a generator. These are needs of students in a classroom that's impacting their daily instructional program.
Yeah, and we have your same interests at heart. I mean, I know we do, but it's a matter of funding. It's a matter of you know, the funding, period.
Well, priority, John, is a word I like to use, and I know it's a matter of funding, but when it's a matter of funding, we have to make hard decisions as to where that funding goes and what are our priorities. And I guess I'm saying, to me, education ought to be a priority because it brings business to us, it brings families to us,
Well,
it
it
makes
is.
our county a better place to live.
100%. I mean, and you talk about priorities, we're cutting across the board. We're cutting, I mean, if you look at the budget, we're cutting across the board. Not across the board, but the large majority of our departments are all getting cuts.
And we have
in
done
their
that for
budgets.
5 years, except for instruction. We've tried to protect instruction, and now we're down to the point of not being able to do that.
Which it begs that question is, what are we as a county doing about this? What is our plan? What is our vision going forward so that we're not sitting here in these same seats in the next 2-3 years, kind of feeling like we're begging to make education a priority? What are we doing to address this issue of lack of revenue?
Well, it is economic development is what you know, we're trying to hang our hat on. I mean, we have brought people in here in the last couple of council meetings, and it seems like a small step, but we've brought people in here in reference to entrepreneurial programs, job growth, whatever we can to jumpstart that process. And we want to see that happen, working with all different agencies. We had 5 different groups here today, or 5 people representing 5 different groups here today, because it's going to take a collaborative effort. And we do understand that.
Well, I mean, and the maintenance of effort law does set up a bit of a disincentive for counties to go above it because it ratchets up the spending that then locks us into more spending in the years to come. So, I mean, so there, and you know, I understand the way the law used to be and I understand why it was changed, but that it ties our hands to a certain extent too for the out years. But you know, in terms of funding and in terms of what the school, you know, what our schools can do with the money, I don't imagine that we're looking at years going forward of large increases. I mean, given the economic outlook and those sort of things. I mean, what efforts has the Board of Education taken to look at how money can be better spent more effectively? I mean, you know, is there a way to look at that? Are there, you know, an outside group that can come in and look at, you know, a better return on education investment? I mean, if the funding isn't going to be there, is there a better way to spend what we have? And I'm not saying that you're not doing that. I'm asking, is there a way that we can assess this? I mean, we need to get, I would be more comfortable with, you know, those sort of answers. You know, what can we do differently?
Well, Mark, I am sure that Bruce Ford's office would be, I don't want to say thrilled, would be happy to provide you with the things we have cut in the past 5 years. When you talk about, you know, are there efforts to see how money can be better spent or where you can cut back? That's what we've been doing for 5 years in a row now, trying to protect the instruction piece, but facilities has been cut and all other operations have been cut over that 5-year period. And our records will show you that. I mean, there reaches a point where you say, how much more can you cut without impacting the services that are desperately needed for the schools? And we talk about facilities upkeep and maintenance. And I know, you know, you have people get up here and say, well, you've not maintained your schools, which is not true. The state will tell you that our county has got a great record in school maintenance. And yet, if we keep cutting, we can't maintain that record. And I sound like I'm on a soapbox, and I need to be quiet here. But honest to goodness, folks, this is really something that I have lived with in my almost 10 years on the board now. And I have never in the history of this county seen us go through a period like we've gone through in terms of education cuts in our budget.
No, I'm well aware that you've cut. I mean, I'm not. I've looked at the budget. I've seen, But I'm thinking on how you take what you're already spending and spending it more effectively, looking at the effectiveness of the programs that exist and seeing if there are different programs that can be used to get this, it's sort of looking at the effectiveness of what is being spent, not necessarily looking at cuts, but how to take what you're already spending and get a better
Well,
bang
some
for the
of
buck.
those cuts have been just what you said. This isn't effective,
Okay.
so we've done away with it. Kim, you want to say?
I do just want to address that because we do, and I will speak for us as board members. We do ask for data that will show the effectiveness of programs that we currently have and how that money is being spent. And are we using those funds to the best of our ability? And are we showing effectiveness? We are asking those hard questions. Also, though, please keep in mind that our at-risk population has grown tremendously in the past 5 years, and that unfortunately, as that population grows, the resources that are needed also grow. In order to meet the needs of the students that we have today, it simply costs more. We feel it as a community. We feel it, the costs of having, our population change, it costs our community more. So as we are measuring the effectiveness of the programs and looking at the dollars and looking at all of the any new changes, any new considerations, the dollar amount is looked at first. And as we do that, we still have to keep in mind that we have students that do not speak English as a primary language, and we still have a literacy issue, and we're trying to help our students become better readers. So it's a challenge. I think that I've heard this phrase that, that Board of Ed, they just want to throw money at the problem. That is certainly not the case.
John made a very interesting comment the last time we met, and you were talking about searching out third parties, public-private partnerships, those type of resources. Is there anything substantial developing there? Is there any way that we can sort of help try to stimulate that?
We're glad to look at that. We've been having some workshop activities on that. The key to me on that is to be able to make sure that their goal is the same as our goal, and particularly in today's market, focusing on reading. And I think, you talk about changing. We probably weed out 5 or 6%, maybe 10%, depending on the year, of programs, services that no longer are serving us well. Most of the time, when we talk about those types of activities, it's an activity that we bring in on a computer-based type of situation where we say, this package of software isn't working as well, and so we weed it out, we put in something new, or we just, put more money on time on the other. We've been spending a lot of time this winter working on how do we compare, and are there schools that we can go to and look at a whole system? Because we already look at the other 4 school systems that have our poverty, homelessness, mobility, and other factors. And we look at those 4 school systems a lot. But we can't really look at them because we're beating all of them. We're either first or second on every measure, whether it's advanced placement, whether it's on students going to college, whether it's on students getting scholarships. We beat them. We look at our test scores. We beat them all the time. So we're looking nationwide. And in general, if we find a school system that has close to our poverty level, say 50% or better, if they look at our mobility rate, say 20% or better, if they look at our homelessness rate, which is 8%, if they just have 5% homeless, we'll look at them. If they have our minority population, that's 5%. We look at them. We don't find anybody that gets the graduation rate that we have. We don't find anybody that has the participation rate in advanced placement. And people are shocked when we say, well, they're participating, but they're not. Guess what? We're beating them in terms of the percentage of kids taking tests, which all of us know that if you increase the number of kids at the top who are taking the test, you're going into a student that is not as well prepared. Guess what? We're also beating them on the scores the kids are getting, even though we increased the number of percent. But we're looking at that, and we're very aggressive in that regard, and look at anybody that wants to join us in the curriculum council and the other activities to make sure that we can get the best possible product. We had meetings as recently as this morning talking about what are some tweaks that we can do to our reading program. Though everybody at the table, probably when you're in school, you had your math problems, and your teacher tell you to do the odd number problems on page 25 or whatever it was. And then they'd have 3 or 4 or 5 word problems. and maybe they'd have you do one or two of those. Well, now, they're all word problems. And those are tough. And what that does is just throws a monkey on the back of the kid that's maybe good at mathematical concept, but they're a lousy reader. And so it just highlights the need for reading. And if we can help families just sit down and get connected with the United Way so they can get a book in that kid's hand every month through the Imagination Library. If we can get families to sit down and read with their kid, even when the kid's in 6th grade, it makes a huge difference. So we're trying those kinds of programs and trying different projects, whether it's the NAACP or it's with United Way or some of the other groups in town, local management board. We've had some real good success with that. And so we're very, very interested. We have a couple of third-party products that we're going to be rolling forward again. Our success with Discovery Education, which is part of the Discovery conglomerate, has been fantastic looking at these tech books. It does two things. Number one, it keeps fresh information in the kid's hand. Number two, we can start reducing the number of books that these kids are hauling around their backpacks on the bus. I mean, you look at these kids' backpacks, and I don't know, measure them a couple times. They're carrying 10, 12, 14 pounds. Well, any of us can take a backpack and go to Europe for a couple weeks on a 15-pound backpack, and these kids are carrying that much weight every day. And Lord knows I'm a lot bigger than these second graders. So we're excited about some of those opportunities. We are looking at those, and if you see something, you say, hey, what about such and such? Shoot us an email, shoot us a call, and we'll check it out to make sure. Right now, we're looking at some computerized reading programs to see if we can fine-tune that and dial it up one more notch. We're getting good results, but I want every kid to walk across that commencement stage. And in a year, we're going to have everybody that's 17 has to stay in school. And then after that, 2 years, we're going to have a kid has to be 18 before they can drop out of school. And we are going to have to change how we teach, because we run the schools. And the kids are not going to be, the kids aren't going to all of a sudden be dipped in something and come to school and say, oh, I want to sit in the classroom, be quiet, and take notes. But we're going to be ready for that.
Yeah, I think we, much like the county, labors under sometimes misguided state policy. I think that, the schools are also face some of that, and so I'm cognizant of that. But as much, we understand that there's some limits on what you can do in terms of innovative education policy.
You also mentioned the central office that
One of the things we've been looking at is we're trying to deal with the annexes. We've got a set of annexes or portable buildings, or you can call them what you wish, temporary facilities behind the building that approximately half of our central office workers work in. Lately, we became aware of some places that are available for significantly less money that we can take and use maintenance money. And instead of asking the county council for $30 million to rebuild Wicomico Middle School, which is my personal and professional preference, is I would love to have central office in Wicomico Middle School on that second floor looking out on the park. It has this beautiful old school look.
your office would be the whole second floor?
No, just a corner of it. But to do that would require $25–30 million of the renovation stuff, and I can't see that coming through in the next 10 years. But we have to do something soon. So we've been scratching our heads, looking around the community, and say, are there some facilities? We believe that there are some facilities in the community that we could rent for maybe $300,000 a year. Then we can take and pull the kids out of Choices Academy and put them at the site where the central office is. That gives us space as a swing school for the West Salisbury kids to go. And I can go into this ad nauseum. But we believe there are some opportunities to that. We would come and request permission from the county council and the county executive to move some monies from some broad spectrum categories. But basically, we're going to take, because we're spending buckets of money fixing those old buildings, and we've got to get out of it. We had an injury a couple weeks ago here where a guy fell through the floor, and that was one of our newer buildings. So we've got to deal with that.
And John, this isn't new, if I could just interject, because I want you to think this is something that just popped up. Larry can speak to this. When he was on the board, we have had real concerns about the condition of the annexes. We're talking about maintaining our facilities. Well, these are portables that were donated to us by Purdue, how many years ago?
Too many.
More than I can remember. And we have tried to maintain them over the years, but they've reached a point that when it rains, the staff has to get plastic coverings over their computers because of the leaks, and there are buckets everywhere. And of course, the condition of the floor is a concern, as John points out. So the board said last year to the superintendent, we can no longer keep trying to repair the annexes. We have got to find a safe work environment for those people, as well as the health issue, because we're concerned about the quality of the air with all the dampness that was getting in the buildings. So this isn't something just popped up. We've been looking for many years now to address the issue. And Brian's department said it's going to cost more money to try to redo these portables than it will be to try to get something different. And this opportunity has just come to us, which would move all of our staff in a different location. And it's the most viable option I have seen that addresses a multitude of problems we're dealing with.
And it's the cheapest.
And that's the bottom line.
It allows us to go forward without asking for money,
If you
additional
need-
money from the
If
county.
you need office space, we have the Drill Academy out by the airport. Maybe that would help
You know, we
out.
talked about the Drill Academy a couple of years, 5 years ago.
That'd be a good place for you all to
I
go
thought you
to.
guys had somebody out there already.
We'll make sure there's room
Move
for you.
them.
Yeah. Probably
Well-
won't cost you $400,000 a year either.
This was a viable option when it was presented to us, because again, it kind of gives us that first step of foundation that we need. And
Instead of Jell-O.
And so, instead of Jell-O. And so it would put us in that position to kind of get some firm steps down, and also to consolidate some of the expenses. You know, it's certainly a viable option for us to have that conversation with the county executive and with you as the county council to move forward with this. It's obviously a big decision, but it is one that is very necessary that we need to move forward on. And so we felt that it was definitely a viable option to pursue further, to do more research on.
Yeah, keep in mind, you may open yourself up to criticism if your central offices are finding new spaces, and yet you still have schools that are suffering. That's not my criticism whatsoever.
I understand.
Keep that in mind.
Well, and we're sensitive to that, John, but you know, we have 2 schools left that aren't air conditioning, one of which is West Salisbury, which we're trying to deal with.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like we've got our eyes closed to those issues. You know that, I think, better than most.
I understand. I guess following up was the school construction savings fund. I've been out for a few years. Is that still implemented, or was that dropped a while back?
No, that was canceled,
Much to our dismay.
about
About
4 years ago.
4 years. I thought I'd gotten wind that it was going that direction, but
We would like to request that it be, reinstated. It's an opportunity for us to encourage and motivate our employees, especially our line item, employees that have authority over any money, to say, you get to April and I just assume you didn't spend that stuff just because it's there. I want to capture that and then put it into dollars for capital. That gives us dollars then to locally leverage state or federal dollars or grants to do capital outlay types of things and keep our buildings in better shape. Respect the county's perspective in terms of, why it was canceled before. We didn't agree with it then. We'd like to have it reconsidered now.
We gave many examples how it had helped us over the years when the decision was made to take it away. It's the only fund we had to go to if there was a genuine emergency that was unexpected. We had something to go to deal with that. And I thought a powerful case was given for how it had been so effective, and yet, much to my surprise, it was taken away, as been pointed out.
so what was that, Joe? What was,
I don't recall.
yeah, 'cause I remember hearing about it, wasn't Kathy?
That's because Bruce put together some documents that we'll be glad to leave with you. It's the timeline from the inception of school construction savings fund to the end.
Great.
When it was, and also the advantages that were discussed, and listing of all the projects that we were able to fund using school construction savings fund money. So we'll be glad
Okay.
to leave those with you.
Good, thanks.
So what's the argument against it? I mean, I've heard the argument for it, so why was it taken away? I mean, I obviously wasn't around.
Someone else needs to answer that, Mark.
I mean,
I'm surprised as anyone that that's
Asking
done.
the-
Mr. Kelmar, I'd be glad to pull the minutes from
All right,
those
I
discussions
appreciate
and
that.
send them to council.
Okay.
Wayne said Matt's been here forever, so he should be able to answer.
He should object.
We'll look up the minutes. He took a pass. He took a pass. Any other questions from the council on, Raymond?
I have a question. When you have budget concerns like we have now, and you know that you're going to go in and you're going to have certain things that you're going to request, and you know that you're not going to get them, what's your process when it comes back to you? What action do you take when it comes back to you because you know you're not going to get these things?
Well, we don't go in thinking we're not going to get them, John. We go in hoping that we indeed will get them, that the priority will be to fund those because we've made a good case of how desperately they're needed. But if we don't get them, what we've done for the past years while I've served as president, and this is my last year in this position, but the thing we have done has said to John and the staff, we've got to protect the instructional program at all cost. And that's why I said for 5 years they've been cutting and cutting and cutting to the point that I don't know how they cut anymore. We've already affected some of our services and the long-term effect of our protective maintenance program. That's already been impacted. But that's what we do. That's what we've been doing. But now we're at the point that if they're not funded, then I fear instruction is going to be impacted, and that talks about larger class size. It maybe talk about losing some people. The other part of that is we've had some help outside of the maintenance of effort piece, which you spoke to a minute ago, where you can do one-time funding for some things. We were able to improve school security through that. We were able to strengthen technology through that. So some of the things in this budget talked about one-time funding needs as well. That won't impact your maintenance of effort bottom line figure, which I understand keeps coming up again and again and again. But that's how we've approached it in past years, and I don't see any other way to approach it. If there is another way, I'd love to know.
Now, when you say "we," you're talking about the
The board, I only speak to the members of the board,
Members
and
of the
we
board.
recommend to the superintendent.
And the
And the
superintendent,
superintendent is responsible for running the day-to-day operation.
and you do this collaboratively, make these decisions?
We get together and talk a lot.
Do you have anybody outside of your core group who helps you make these decisions? Do you take the gifted people that you have in your system, 1,800 people?
We
Do
have
you-
about 3,800 people that get a paycheck every couple of weeks.
Okay, do you take the best of those 3,800 people and put them in a room and say, we need some help and we need some decisions that are going to be made that will make our education system better? Have you ever done that?
Yep.
Well,
We do it on a regular basis.
Well, you do it by taking suggestions, but have you ever put those 10 top most gifted people in your system in a room and said, let's have a think tank? Let's take the most talent we have and put them in a room?
We do a number of things that are maybe not the exact same as what you just suggested, but on a regular basis, I have for years been operating. When we do the budget process, we have about 25 people that participate in that process closely. And they're in the room and they hammer things out.
Okay.
We talk about curriculum issues and talk about curriculum things. We first have a group of about 20, 25 who just about fill the media center. And then they go out and talk to people. So if there's a book that they're considering, they might give that book to 15 people and have them, write up an evaluation on it. And they have students, staff, and parents.
Are they conscripted or do they volunteer for these?
It depends on the length of the book a lot of times. When we've got a 700 or 800 page chemistry textbook, it's conscription. If it's an 80-page book for middle school youth on a particular topic, we probably have people coming in trying to check the book out. We had, on a regular basis, I have a group that comes in and we talk about the school system. It's all teachers. It's called the Superintendent's Roundtable. We get together once a month up at Del Mar. After school, we sit and talk about things for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's partly my list of topics, but it's partly their list of topics. We also have a group called the Family Leadership Council, and that's parents, and they actually list what they want to talk about, and then I set up the times to bring in the experts to talk about it. And I do the same thing with managers. I have this principals listening post. In fact, that'll be tonight. And we'll sit and listen, and it's just me listening to the team talking about what they want to talk about. How are things going? Right now, we're going through this PAC experience with testing. And it's, the test works fine, the curriculum works fine, the technology has worked okay. We have a limited technology, so we don't have enough to do it all at the same time. The scheduling has been a real, I'm not sure the right way to say it, but it's been a challenge. That's a good one, thank you. It's been real tough. So we're talking, we've changed the scheduling system. We think it'll be better, but if I had another 6,000 computers, I could make the scheduling problem disappear. But it's, you know, at the end of the day, we have to balance the system and we have to live within our means. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Thank you very
thanks.
much.
I was just gonna ask, in past years, I believe included with your budget, we've received a list of maybe the top 10 things that didn't get funded, that you would like, maybe a want list. And I assume that ESOL program is probably on there. And our budget's on our lunch table back there, which we haven't looked at yet, but is that included this year? Is there a?
Intervention teachers and ESOL teachers are on
Top
the list
two.
of requests.
Okay,
They're in there, but they're also a listing of other things we did not fund. if
right,
you're
that's what I
asking.
was asking.
That
Yeah,
is
I think
Okay.
the non-funded list is there too, isn't it? No,
I
we
was going
didn't.
to say, no,
But we
there is
can-
no non-funded list.
All that we put in this year's budget was the new requests that are in priority order.
Okay,
Page 61 of the document. And then the one-time proposed funding request, which we've submitted in past years, which you will have referred to as that security initiative the council.
Sure.
put in the county executive fund a couple years ago. That's on page 62.
Yeah, but not the non-funded, so the ESOL is not in there?
The ESOL is part of the request.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay,
one of the two
New
things
requests.
we've included.
okay.
But, John, could they not get a copy of
Sure,
the
we can give
things
you the
that
cut
are?
list.
I wouldn't mind
I
seeing it.
mean, you can see the cut list,
Sure.
which is more than the top 10 if you looked at all of them. but-
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And realizing that the budget submitted to you is maintenance of effort, but knowing too that the Board of Education's budget is one that you have the authority to add back to. So I just wanted to keep that in mind.
Yeah, point that out. I have a question. Keep talking about ESOL, and I forgot, and it probably increases. How many foreign-speaking languages do we have?
26 or 28.
26.
It's 695, 694 kids.
Okay. I met a lobbyist at Mako for Montgomery County, and I think she said their county has like 146 foreign languages.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess 26 isn't bad, but that's still a lot.
How much student growth did you have this year? Or are you anticipating?
I think it's 147.
146,
Yeah,
sounds right.
it's about 1%. And that's within the range of variation. I mean, I see it as a slight enrollment growth trend, but there's not enough of them in a row to make a trend line yet.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming in and taking the time. We all know the budget's going to be a high priority issue, but I would like to make sure we stay on with the West Salisbury and your central office, however you might, want to develop with those plans, and the schools and construction savings. I think that might be something interesting to try to relook at.
Thank you for the opportunity to
Yeah.
visit.
Thank you,
We're available
John.
anytime.
We appreciate the opportunity to share with you like this, and
Oh,
we're
yeah.
glad you're doing this on a regular basis. We miss that. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Sure,
I think it was very productive, and I look forward to
Process.
continuing the process.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, John.
Thank you for your service.
Okay, yes, is there opportunity?
It was by design. Well, Fulton used to be on that side. He was, but then I switched and he switched. Remember, because we have the projector up there.
See you again.
Over there beside Kathy.
Let me get it out.
I'm loving it. Okay. Oh, yeah. He wants to get up with you. He's ready.
Fine, sir.
He's ready to get out there.